Okay, our recess is over and we are in open session. Next item, consent, and no votes were taken in executive session. Next item, consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda consisting of the minutes of the regular meeting dated July 12th, 2016, and also consisting of warrant number 1 for the month of July dated August 9th, 2016, for a grand total expenditure of $3,012,901.74. Excuse me. And to award the bid for the Burrillville High School and Burrillville Middle School HVAC control system to Industrial Burner Service, Providence, Rhode Island, in the amount of $29,893, and to award the bid for Stair Farm Elementary School flooring and carpet installation to Authority Flooring Incorporated, Cranston, Rhode Island, in the amount of $7,697.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next item, presentations by the public to the school committee. Be none this evening. Item 7, public comment. Anyone wishing to speak to the committee may step forward. Hearing none. Next item, personnel. Appointments, leaves of absence, retirements, resignations.
Motion to accept the resignations of Stacy Sunderland, school psychologist for the district, effective May 31st, 2016. Brian Flamand, Transition Learning Center, effective immediately. And Brian LaForce, boys soccer head coach, Burrillville High School, effective immediately.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve Amy Bailu, leave of absence. Amy Bailu is a life skills teacher at Burrillville High School. Her leave of absence will take place from 8/30/16 through 10/2/16.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Let's see, motion to approve the appointments of Megan Lowe, Transition Learning Center at William L. Callahan, Step 2 plus Masters. Erin LaForce, Grade 5, 1 year only, W. L. Callahan, Step 6 plus Masters. Stephanie Hines, Reading Specialist, 1 year only at Callahan, Step 6 plus Masters. Marissa Tybee, .4 English Language Arts at Burrillville Middle School, Step 7 plus Masters. Stephen Muccino, Social Studies, Burrillville Middle School, Step 1. Garrett Campbell, Music Band Teacher, Burrillville Middle School, Step 1. Kelsey Vanes, Health Technology Teacher at Levy, Stair Farm, and Callahan, Step 1. Lindsay Ando, Chemistry, Burrillville High School, Step 10. Laura Rogers, School Psychologist for the District, effective August 24th, 2016. Robert Barrows, Grade 5, Callahan, effective August 24th, 2016. Michael Cogshell, Technology Teacher, Burrillville Middle School, voluntary transfer. Monica Thompson, Principal's Assistant at Stair Farm Elementary, 1,000. Danielle Poria, Special Ed Lead Teacher at Stair Farm Elementary for 1,000. Barbara Brearley, Teacher Assistant at Austin T. Levy, effective 8/24/2016. Donna Roderick, Morning Duty Supervisor at the middle school, .5 hours per day at $20 an hour. Sandra Solham, Teacher Assistant, Burrillville Middle School, effective 8/24/16. Cheryl Lamoureux, Teacher Assistant at Burrillville Middle School, effective 8/24/16. Kaylee Emity, Teacher Assistant, Stair Farm Elementary, effective 8/24/16.
Second.
Oh, we have two more, I think.
No, those are,
Those are the
Athletics.
athletics. Okay, thank you. Do you have a motion?
So move.
And a second?
second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Athletic appointments, motion to approve Angela Kraus, Girls Lacrosse Assistant coach at Burrillville High School at $1,735. William Lacey, girls softball head coach, Burrillville High School, $2,170. And Lindsay Lacey, girls softball assistant coach, Burrillville High School, $1,735. John LaFosse, boys soccer head coach at Burrillville High School, $2,170 plus $400 longevity. Paulo Macedo, boys soccer assistant coach at the Burrillville Middle School, $1,735. He is pending receipt of all appropriate paperwork.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye. Okay, motion to rescind the appointment of Amy Cardone, girls soccer coach, Burrillville Middle School, effective June 21st, 2016.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Dr. Pilata?
Just a quick note, it's been an extremely busy summer, as you can see with all the appointments. We had over 30 either voluntary transfers, new hires, leave of absences, which is a great amount of personnel. We only have 3 remaining, which is a .4 resource teacher at Callahan, behavior specialist at William Callahan, and we are in the process of interviewing for the Burrillville High School special education teacher. So those are the only 3 personnel situations that we have remaining. I just want to let you know that we may have to put some of these people in place before the next meeting, particularly the special education position at the high school. We need somebody in that position, obviously, before the next school committee meeting. So I just want to make you aware of that as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Next item, old business, fiscal year 16 BSD
Did we take a
budget.
vote on that? I think we had
Amy Cardone, I thought we did. Is that the one you're talking
a
about?
motion and a second, and
Yeah, but then
Comment.
he went to discussion. We never actually voted on it.
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Next item, old business, fiscal year 16 BSD budget update.
Motion open?
Second?
Motion open and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There's no action required. I can tell you that, as of today, we have an unaudited surplus of approximately $170,000. The superintendent has notified the town council during a meeting that the intent is to use a amount of that $170,000 to support the renovations at the Eccleston Fieldhouse.
Thank you. Any questions for Robin and Dr. Pilata? Hearing none, fiscal year 16 rink budget update.
Motion open?
Second?
Motion open and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Again, it's just for informational purposes. The rink has an unaudited surplus at this point of approximately $161,000.
Robin, excuse, do you know if, I know Chris isn't here, do you know if he was able to get the synthetic ice, if that had come in? I thought, and you know, just to say, that was pretty creative thinking on his part, and, you know, it seems to, something that would expand the skating program. I thought it was a good idea. Yeah, yeah, I was just curious.
No, I couldn't tell you if that has to be.
Okay, that was pretty good thinking on his part. Right, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Next item, transgender protocol policy, second reading.
Motion open?
Second?
Second.
Motion open to second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I know you had asked me to look into the potential cost of that. Dave and I went to every school building, talked to all the principals, and basically the cost, there's very little cost, probably less than a couple $100. It's basically putting some signs on identified bathrooms that we've identified in each of the schools. The middle school has been dealing with this issue for a couple of years now. They haven't had any issues. The only potential issue that may arise would be if a transgender student requested some privacy in terms of a locker room or during a gym period. And that basically would just cost a matter of purchasing a curtain and setting up privacy for that individual. So there's really no essential cost involved with any of this policy.
Thank you. Any other questions? Alex?
In my opinion, I think this policy is very important, and it's something that the district should adopt. I think it's well-written. I think it's a good starting point for us, and in the future, we can always edit it, change it as we find fit. But I think this is something that the district should really adopt and look into because it's very important. That's just my opinion.
Anyone
Motion
else?
to approve second reading of the transgender protocol policy and not read.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks
Opposed?
to those who put it together.
Hearing none.
Good job.
Can I just ask a question? Is that okay?
Sure.
So I know we just approved the policy. Does that mean that we approve the changes that Dr. Plata and Mr. Fonz talked about? That means we approved both things, right?
So that we are putting the placards on?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Okay.
Next item, school committee participation screening team.
Motion to open?
Motion open and
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think that for this, you've all had document placed in your weekly packet, so you know what it's about. And do I have any questions from the committee?
I just have one concern is, you know, I've been on screening committees before, not only here but on the council. I didn't find it to be any kind of bias in any way, shape, or form, and especially in the process that we have here in our district, at the school department, where it's a number system, and you're one of 7. As far as I'd be looking more so as at administrators, more than a teaching position, or, you know, like I say, a teacher. It kind of gives the committee a direction of, you know, what direction we're going in, and what this individual, you know, some of the questions that could be put to the individual, just to observe how that person would handle or what direction they would go in. So I found it to be quite informative and helpful in my vote. I mean, not to say that I would recommend a certain person one over the other. I mean, I have, in far as numbers have gone and being part of that, but again, the final say is the superintendent after interview.
The final say is the
Well, I
school
mean,
committee.
is who's going to be presented to the committee,
Mhm.
that's what I meant. And, you know, we do have the final say, but it's really who's being presented, if that person, you know, if you're going to support your superintendent, which, you know, I usually do, so. I don't have a problem being on, but I didn't see it as any kind of a conflict.
How would you
in
think
my-
a person sitting on a screen, a committee member sitting on a screening team, how would that person relay the information about the proposed candidate to the rest of the committee? Or is it just for that one committee member to know?
Well, it's
Or
usually,
how would that committee member express that, what he or she decided to the rest of the
usually
committee?
kept confidential on any of the
So then what's the purpose?
Yeah.
How does that help the committee members at all, if it's just one committee
Well,
member?
Mr. Chair, may I?
As soon as I'm done. How does that, I don't understand how you would express if you have one committee member at these
It
screening
just helps,
meetings.
it just helps in the selection of the individual.
But that's what I want you to explain. How does it help in the selection? So that one committee member forms an opinion about a new hire or a group of new hires.
Yeah.
And that committee member doesn't vote until after the superintendent's recommendation. So how is his opinion shared with the rest of the committee? Or his or her opinion shared with the rest of the committee?
Well, that, I guess in the vote, that'd be the only way it would be.
In the vote, so during the vote, after Dr. Plum made the recommendation, during the vote, the committee member that sat on that search team would then give his opinion of how he felt about either candidate or the candidate to the rest of the committee?
I guess if there were comments, if they were open to comments or discussion, I guess that would be one way
Okay.
that could happen.
Dottie?
Well, I kind of have to agree that there is no need for a school committee member to sit on a hiring committee, and this is my reasoning. Yes, I am a member of the school committee, and I work very hard at doing that, but I am not familiar with the everyday workings of a school principal, what they're responsible for, nor am I familiar with what every teacher, member of our staff, is responsible for. Whereas a committee made up of administrators and teachers, even parents, have more information as to what is going on. Why would a school committee member put themselves in a position when we get our packets, attached to our packets are the documentations, the resumes of the potentially new hires and appointments? Why would we read them and we look at them and we say, yes, this person is definitely suited for the position that they're going to be seated at. So we do make the final decision at the recommendation of the superintendent, but it's not for any of us to know exactly what the teacher is doing, what the administrator is doing, what is happening there. That's what is, I'm sure those are the questions that are asked when a committee sits and they talk to a candidate. Exactly, what do you do when this? What do you do? How do you do? That kind of question. That wouldn't be anything that any member of our committee should be asking, because we're not the ones who will be overseeing or working for. So I think that that's where I'm going to take my position, that we do not put ourselves in the position of being influenced maybe by a candidate who may be someone that we know personally, or in it, something like that, that we give our administrators and our teachers the opportunity to choose the person that is absolutely right for the position being offered. That's what I
Thank you.
stand.
Joshua?
I agree with Mike mostly on this, because I think it does give us a benefit to be involved with this process. I know the ones that I've done recently, it was very beneficial to see how the process goes, and it's very beneficial to see how it's selected. The last one I was on, it was a committee of 10 people, and just to go back to, you don't ask questions. The questions are already done. The questions are already formatted, and each individual person who comes in gets asked the same exact questions. You don't get to, as a member of that committee, just start firing off questions to that person. And maybe it was because I was also a parent, and the last one I did was had to do with special needs, which my son has special needs as well. So that was why I found it so beneficial. So And to answer your question, I mean, when that committee makes their decision, that is going to the superintendent as a committee. So no, you're not really supposed to come out of that committee and go around to this committee and tell everybody, oh, I didn't like that person, I didn't, you know, that's not supposed to happen. It's supposed to be that committee does its job in its little bubble there.
I feel it's just an experience
It's
for
an
a committee
experience,
member
and
to
it's
sit
a
in
way
and
that
see how the process works.
We all know how the process is working and how the administrators do their jobs and how they get these candidates, and it was very eye-opening to me to see the process happen. So I would recommend that we continue with school committee members being involved with this.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? Alex first.
When I sat on a screening committee, probably less than 6 months ago, I didn't vote. So I just sat there and I was able to see how the candidates interacted with the screening team, and I got to see how professional our staff worked to find a good candidate to bring to Dr. Pilata and then to bring to us. So more or less, I was just a fly on the wall. I enjoyed it. I understand what we have in front of us too, so, I mean, I can see the benefits for like personally, of us being able to see how it's done, but are there any benefits of us? I don't know what I'm trying to say, but.
I do.
You know what I'm trying, there's benefits, I guess, personally and professionally to see how our.
It's a learning experience.
It is, to see how the screening team works together. But there's no benefit as me being a school committee member. I didn't benefit or change that process in any way or add anything. So, I mean, that was just, personally, I gained experience, but professionally, I mean, I didn't add anything. I took things away, but I didn't add anything, so.
Thank you.
I feel that, you know, as elected officials, you know, in a representative government, I think it's important for us to do right by the people we represent, by being in a situation where we can learn as much as we can about this process. And I can't see our position, knowing ultimately we're going to be the decision makers on that, how that would interfere with the interviewing process or in any way interfere with the person being interviewed feeling uncomfortable or persuaded in any way. So and knowing there's no law, am I correct that there's no law that prevents us from having that? I would have to say that I think it's in all of our best interests to have that sort of finger on the pulse, and just to see not necessarily who the candidate is as much as how is the process working. You know, we're more responsible for the administration, sort of that oversight, and making sure that that is being handled properly. So, in my opinion, I think that maintaining that, having someone in that meeting, I think is important.
Thank you for that. Anyone else?
I have a question for
Ms. Carter?
do you, Mr. Allen, do you believe that you should go and sit with the committee and just listen and learn rather than vote and give opinion?
I'm very comfortable with that. I think
Comfortable with which one?
with observing what takes place in that meeting.
Just observing and not being part of the question and answer type of thing?
Yeah, I don't think that's necessary.
Okay.
I think ultimately
And
having
I don't
that-
think they do that anyway.
Yeah,
You're
no,
not part
so-
of the questions and answers anyway.
Yeah, I don't.
I asked a question.
You did, okay.
I just read it. I mean, I didn't ask them any further questions or anything like that.
But that's
I
part
just
of
read
the questions, I
that was
think,
on the
that they
paper.
pre-form, so every person, like okay, you're gonna ask this
You
question.
didn't make up the
You're
question,
gonna
it was
ask-
on a
right,
form.
It was on a
Right,
form.
okay.
It was predetermined.
Right, it was a
which
predetermined, she
questions
just
were
read
gonna be
the question.
Sylvia?
I think our main purpose here is for kids education. And I think if we, and as school committee people, I think we should be present in that respect.
Anyone else have any questions? I'm not quite sure when the policy was kind of veered from. The policy 5221, it doesn't say anything about having a school committee member appointed to a screening team. As part of the filling of vacancies, the district shall allow input to include staff, parent, community involvement where appropriate. The Following the closing of the application timeline, the superintendent's office and/or school-based screening team conducts the first-level screening. Everything, all completed and approved applications will be forwarded to the school-based interview team. The school-based interview, it just keeps repeating, school-based interview team, so the policy doesn't say anything about a school committee member being appointed, not appointed, you know, how, who, and what school committee member does what, when, how many times, do we each just rotate a turn, which was proposed at one point. So I don't know when it changed and school committee members started going to these things, because I don't think the policy ever said that. So, I guess that we would be, you know, the school committee does approve the final candidate that is reviewed by the interview team, Dr. Pilata. He gives us the best selection to choose from or to approve. So I guess it's up to the committee on which direction we want to go to with this, but I would ask if our attorney, Ben Scungio, would pipe in maybe and give us a legal opinion on this.
Most of you won't like my opinion. So, it's not really a legal opinion, it's more of a practical opinion. Because Mr. Allen is correct, there isn't a statute that prohibits it. But if you look at, it's exciting to be on a school committee. And people who love education, especially those on the school committee, want to be involved in every single level of it. Because it's fun, and it's wonderful to help kids, and that's why you're all committed to do this job. But there's also a question of splitting respective responsibilities in the correct parties. So under the statute, it's the superintendent's responsibility to hire all employees with your advice and consent. So that means it's his job and his subordinate's job to come up with who they feel are the best candidate for a particular job, and then you vote on that candidate. You don't have the statutory right to pick an individual candidate that comes up. And 90% of the school committees in Rhode Island handle it that way. There are some that I think, some actually that we represent, that kind of off the rails, and they've gotten their fingers into the hiring process. And you can understand why you would, because you want to have a more meaningful voice in that vote. But when the General Assembly created both superintendents and school committees, they split those responsibilities. I think because the General Assembly makes an assumption that your superintendent is in the best position to basically hire somebody. Your position is to make sure that the superintendent hasn't gone off the rails. The superintendent's responsible for running the district. So if you put that piece, that legal piece over here, then you have to decide to what extent would you want to have a policy where you got involved, and what are the negative things that can happen as a result of that. So when you're in the room as a school committee person, you have an influence on all the people in that room, whether you intend to or not. It's just the position that you hold. It's not necessarily the force of your personality, it's just you're one of the people that's going to vote. And you're going to give cues. Sometimes those cues are going to be verbal, sometimes those cues are going to be nonverbal. And they may skew the results of people who have the best capacity to make the decision or inform the superintendent on how to make the decision. That's what you really have to watch out for. So it's really interesting and fun to go to those meetings and see what happens. Suppose your opinion is different than the superintendent's is. And for the most part, you don't have any educational background or administrative background to make that decision. That's going to skew your own vote. So the superintendent could bring somebody to you that he absolutely knows is the best person for the job, based on a bunch of reasons that you may not have never considered. In interviews, people usually make a decision based on what their gut tells them, and that's how we vote for president, that's how we vote for candidates all the time. That's what you do in interviews. Interviews, in my estimation, pretty poor qualifier for someone to do the job. And I just got done interviewing about 10 people for a position in my firm. Couldn't decide on any of them, so we're not hiring anybody right now. But to the extent you put your fingers into that, it's not your position to, in theory. I mean, if you want to, you can, but it's kind of a dangerous road to walk down to the extent that you will, one way or the other, you will skew a result, and you will be stepping on traditionally what the administrator's jobs are, as opposed to what your own roles and responsibilities are. So that's one way to look at it. So I can't say don't do it. If it works for you, that's fine. I'm just here to tell you that it's potentially dangerous. You have to really be careful when you do it. I craft a policy that's very tailored to exactly what you intend to happen and how at those meetings if you decide to go ahead with that. So right now, you're all fine as school committee people, but you can envision someone who runs and sits on one of these chairs that isn't, and can kind of run amok in that process and become a mini superintendent in his or her mind. You have to protect your district from that, I think. So sorry for the long-winded answer.
No, that's great information. Thank you very much. And I don't want to give, I'd like to give Dr. Pilato an opportunity to say a few words if you'd like.
Well, Ben, in his last statement, indicated what I was going to speak to. I think the current members of the committee would service the process fine. You don't know what the future will hold in terms of committee members. 17, 18 years ago, when I was superintendent in Lincoln, and Ben was an attorney representing Lincoln. He still represents Lincoln. A person ran for the school committee just to fire somebody, and that was their intent. So I think you have to really be cognizant of not the present, but the future in terms of people coming on to the school committee. And I've heard back from the screening teams in terms of, some people will sit there and some people will make comments and other people will not make comments. Some people want to score, some people don't want to score. It puts the screening team in a somewhat tenuous situation because they may not feel free to speak or say certain things because the committee member's present, and they don't know how the committee member will take their comments. You don't realize how important your elected position is. I mean, you're looked at differently than we're looked at. We're an employee. You're an elected official. You represent a constituency. And I think, as Ben alluded to, you do sit on the interview team when you select the superintendent, and then the law splits at that point in terms of responsibility of the school committee and superintendent. I don't have a preference either way, as long as it's consistent, and if it goes either way, we need to make sure that we have, something in writing in terms of a policy of whether a person can have input into that process or not have input into that process. I sat as a school committee person for 20 years, and there were times where I sat on the interview team and I felt conflicted when I sat as a school committee person to take a vote, knowing the individual that went for the interview and the other school committee person not having as much information as the person who sat during that interview process. And I think that's what you were trying to get at, Mark, in terms of how do you share that? Well, you can't share that because somebody already said you can't come out of that meeting and talk about it. So you hold that to yourself. But you don't realize that when you speak at a school committee meeting, your objectivity or subjectivity will come out and you'll speak to it. And I don't think anybody in an elected capacity should be put in that position. If you were to ask me if I had to take a position on that, I would say that I think you would protect the integrity of the screening process if no one sat there in any capacity. Because, make no mistake about it, you probably have all gotten phone calls when people apply for positions, as I do. And if you happen to be sitting on that screening team and you got a phone call from somebody, would you recuse yourself from that position or would you not? You don't want to put yourself in that position. I think it protects you as an elected official. And Mark is right, there's nothing in the current policy that speaks to it. I don't know when it started, it certainly preceded me when I got here. So I don't really know what took place prior to me getting here. But I will say this, I think the process has worked over the last 6 years. I think people have got a good experience from it over the last 6 years. So it does work well, so. Those are my comments.
Thank you for your comments. Would anyone else like to add to the conversation at this time?
I know as, from the past, not from me, but when there were other members as chair, school committee members were allowed, I guess, to go, not all of them, but at least one, and even sit up in the back of the room and not make a comment and just observe, and I don't know how intimidating that would be. It's just to observe, but it was also a condition that if you're gonna go to one of them, you gotta go to all, so that you, you know, get a flavor for all the candidates, and you don't have to make an opinion, you don't have to say a thing, but just to, you know, I think it does see the way that things are moving and what direction, you know, if a certain person is high. I'm talking administration, I'm not talking any other personnel, to see what direction things would go.
You bring up a good point. One other
Yeah,
comment.
go ahead.
I think if you move in the direction of a policy with a school committee person being present at those meetings, you don't want to tie the administrator's hands that we're going to have the meeting centered around your schedule. We, you know, the administrators have to get together. A lot of people have to get together. Now, if you can't make that meeting, does the policy say we don't go forward with the interviews? Or can we go forward with the interviews if we have something in writing? So I think that's something else you really need to think about. That, like you said, if one goes, then we really need to be consistent with that.
Yeah, and I really think that starts to cloud the role of the superintendent and a school committee member. The superintendent has his finger on the pulse of his administrators and his administration that he is responsible for, and he's responsible for the direction of the school and the policies that the school committee puts in place. And so we have to trust in our superintendent that he knows his administrators, he has the best for the job, and he trusts what they're doing with their screening team. And I just know, just my 4 years as a school committee member, I know of several committee members that I have no doubt could not have sat in on one of these investigative meetings, or not, you know, one of these meetings and not had something to say or an expression to reveal, or it would have been impossible. So I just think, I don't know when the policy changed, but if we go down that road, we're gonna need a very, very strong policy created to protect this committee from any type of
Mr. Chair, may I make a motion?
Yes,
That school committee persons not attend screening or interview committees, and that we accept policy P5221, policy procedures and guidelines to recruit, support, and retain highly efficient staff as presented.
I have a motion. Fails for a second. Do I have another motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we create a policy that would establish the rules that would allow school committee members to attend these meetings.
I second that.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
I have one.
Okay. Sylvia?
I have been on screening committees, and what I feel is if the screening commit, as a school committee person, I believe that we really shouldn't say anything. That maybe if we want to say something before the interviews happen, that's the time to do it, and then the rest of the time, stay silent. But I also have been on the school committee for 2 years, and I still have questions, and there's still information that I don't have. And I think being on a screening committee would, at least sitting as an observer on the screening committee, would help me to be more, I would say, supportive of the teacher that is being hired, and it probably helped me to believe in that person, so that there's a connection that I have with whatever person that the committee chooses. And I think it would help me, and I think it would also help the school.
Anyone else? Alex?
I think if we do create a policy, us members should not be able to vote. That's just my opinion. I think if we go and we want to sit there and just have this professional experience, then that's fine. But I don't think, even if it's a screening team of 10 people, I don't think we should be a person that has a final vote. Because our vote is going to be after Dr. Pilata brings one final candidate to us, that's going to be our vote. I think if we want to go sit there, that's fine, but for us to make a vote within that screening period, I just don't think that's right.
Thank you. Mr. Allen?
I would agree with that also, and to piggyback off of what Dr. Pilata said, you know, whereas we don't know who might be sitting in these seats, we don't know who's going to be sitting in that seat. And I think sort of the objective that I think I would have in that role is simply to observe the process. And I agree that voting, I don't think is necessary. That role is played out in this meeting here. So I think as an observer, that's as far as I think we would need to go with it.
Well, we have a procedure to get rid of him. We don't have a procedure to get rid of one of us. Any other discussion?
Also, I guess if, in the policy, it could be worded that it's not mandatory that a school committee person have to be there, or say,
I would agree with that.
it's not, that's not a prerequisite or condition that make the process move forward. There may be, you know, some situations where, no, maybe a school
there's no
committee
member, yeah.
person shouldn't be there. But again, that's another thing, at whose discretion. That would be the chair, or, you know, if a school committee person should not be there, or, and don't make it mandatory that a school committee person has to be one there, but the option if the school committee
You have to
member
make a
would like to
decision,
attend.
decision about a rotating list or an
Rotating
appointment.
list, if they're not able to make it, then
Put on the list.
Yeah, I think the process can still
Show
move
goes on.
forward. Yeah, we wouldn't want to hold that up that way.
agree with that.
So, Ann, what do you have so far?
I have a motion with no second, and then a bunch of
You do have a
lovely
second.
ideas.
So
Oh,
motion.
You have a
Yeah,
motion
second
from
I
Mr.
made a
Allen.
No, I made a motion.
And
No.
That never passed, that didn't go
That
forward.
died.
So Mr. Allen made a motion
Yeah.
to have a policy drafted.
Okay,
I seconded that
Oh, yes,
motion.
yes.
Then we went to
yes.
discussion
Oh,
upon it.
sorry,
so we're
yes,
still in discussion.
Yes.
So now we have to vote on that motion.
So on the vote, I would like to take the vote individually, if you don't mind. So we'll start with you, Joshua.
Yes.
Excuse me?
Wait,
We
just
have a
for
motion,
clarity
a
on the
second.
motion.
We have a motion.
Yeah,
Create
The
a
motion
policy.
is the school committee to sit on a screening team just as an observer.
I thought the motion
The motion is
was
for you to
Make a
create a
policy.
policy
Create-
that would be that, and then you
Yeah,
present
but I
that
want the specificity of the
Right,
motion.
that policy is, yes,
Okay.
just as an
Just to
observer.
create a policy, I mean, do you need to be present? Don't you need to be present? Are you gonna just observe? I think we need to be a little bit more specific with the policy or
Okay,
the motion.
I will amend it to suggest, or actually to state that it would be an observer's position only.
And
And
that,
I think we could leave that to a first reading to maybe qualify if we all agree to mandating those types of things. But,
On a rotating list, not an appointment.
right. Could that be hashed out in a, so at least the initial motion will be that it would be an observer and not taking a vote. And then from there, we'll,
A rotating list
You're
with,
right.
So
yeah,
I
those
have,
other motions we can,
And not, and especially on, that when you leave that particular meeting, that it should not be discussed with anyone.
Confidentiality.
It should be,
I mean, I think we can work those out. My motion is that, as amended, would include,
For a first reading and then much further discussion after the first reading?
fair enough.
so,
I just wanna be clear, so,
Let Dr.
somebody made a comment that about, it was just for administrators? Are you including
Yes.
teachers, teacher assistants, administrators? What are you looking at?
Is it for every hire or just administrators?
Well,
I think it was for all.
I would think just, I would vote just administrators.
Yeah.
Well, that has to be
Well,
part of the motion.
Yeah.
So part of the motion needs to state administrators, teachers, all hires,
All hires as of right now.
all hires. Those, you know.
All hires?
I think we're gonna need
Teacher
more, we're gonna
assistants
need more
and-
committee
You
members.
want
to
teacher
fill this.
assistants and custodians and,
I would say just administrators, that's,
Okay, so we
We
need to
can't.
clarify that in the motion. Do you want to amend your motion,
Okay.
or?
I'll make a fresh motion. Let's start with, I'll make a motion that we create a policy whereby school committee members may sit and observe the hiring process for,
Administrators?
I think administrators makes more sense. I think, but although, I mean,
you can always
I-
amend it, but I think if you want to try that first, because you're talking about, you're talking about part-time people, part-time reading people, part-time speech and language people.
I think I just wanted to leave it
I
open
just
so
want to
that
give
it was.
direction to the screening teams.
I just didn't want it to be restrictive so that we would be prohibited from sitting in on other types of interviews to see the process. So I don't mean that we should be forcing this issue to have all of us committed to sitting in on every interview.
If
but I
you're
think-
concerned about the process is the same for part-time people to administrators. So if it's the process you're concerned about, you could see that just with the administrators. The same holds true for teacher assistants, custodians, part-time people. Process is the same.
Mark?
One second. So, you were clarifying your motion.
And I'll leave
Wait a
it
second, so you withdraw your motion.
and I restate the motion, and I will leave it at administrators, and we can discuss any further changes in
Okay.
in a future meeting.
Okay, so do you still want to second his amended motion?
I do, but I want to hear what Sylvia has to say.
Okay, but you're
but
going to
yeah, I
second
would
his
second
amended
that,
motion.
And then I want to
Okay,
hear Sylvia.
further discussion, Sylvia.
okay, we are responsible for what's happening in the schools. And I really believe that we should be allowed, not mandated, but allowed to sit and observe in any interview that we wish to do. I'm sure we're not going to do all of them, and we're not going to be, right on all the time. But I really believe that I know, as a former teacher and really being very concerned about the education of kids in the system, that I need to believe in these people, and I need to know that who they are and what their background is and why the committee chose this person, so that I can support that as time goes on.
Okay, anyone else? We're still in discussion?
My last comment would be, I just don't, if we open it up to all hirings, I don't know how we choose which ones we sit at and which ones we don't. I don't know if we say, oh, let's go sit at this interview for a custodian, but let's not go sit in this interview for a teacher's aide. To me, I would feel more comfortable if we just either did administrators, all hires, like if we chose
Okay.
one, that's.
Fair enough. Did that make any further discussion? Joshua?
I think all hires would be way too much.
Mm.
I just think all hires would be
Okay.
way.
you can
Okay.
always amend it
It's not like
later on.
Okay.
I mean,
I know.
make changes later on.
But I do agree that we shouldn't be, not allowed to do it either, if there's a situation that comes up. I mean, I understand where Sylvia's coming from, so I don't want to make it so you can't do it, or we can't possibly go there, but I don't want to make it part of the rotation
Okay,
either,
so we
I
might
guess.
have to entertain,
I don't know how to
You're
word
right,
that.
You're right.
Policy
okay.
subcommittee, I guess, could work.
Well, policy subcommittee could work on it. I don't think you're talking about having a screening subcommittee of the committee. I don't think, right? Okay. Dottie, you had a question?
I really think that we're going in a direction where we're going to be somewhat interfering with a process that should be left to administrators and teachers. Because when we, as I have said before, when we get the packet, we get a copy of their resume, which gives us the information that the committee is using to help them understand the candidates that they are interviewing. Now, why would you want to put your time into going to one of these meetings and sitting there as an elected official and possibly interfering just because you're elected, making the committee feel a little uncomfortable? I don't want to put myself in that position. I want them to be able to go through that hiring process without feeling like they're going to have to be very careful what they say because one of us is sitting there. And that's why I made that my original motion, is because I don't want to interfere with that process. I want it to go in the right direction so that we still continue to get the very best in administrative staff, all members of our staff, whether they're support staff or whatever. I don't think that we want to make them feel uncomfortable. We want them to do the job and do it well. So we want these screening and interview committees to do their work without feeling that they're being observed and quantified and judged. I want to leave that out. I want them to do their work and have the superintendent discuss with them and present to us what they, as professionals, and the superintendent agree would be the best fit for our district. They're the people who know, not me, not you. To sit and observe is a good idea. However, that sitting and observing puts pressure on the committee because we're the elected officials who will give them, are they here judging us as to what we're doing? So I don't want to put myself in that position. I don't want them to think of me that way. I want them to think of me as someone who supports the hard work that they do.
Moving right along, does anyone else have any questions? The only comment I have is that, I agree in the experience. I've not sat in on one. I agree for the experience, and I think that each committee member should sit in on one interview and screening team through the period of their term as a school committee member. If you sat on one, you sat on them all. They're all the same. So sit in on one, have the experience, let the next committee member go experience one, and then you have the experience, you know what it's all about, and we move on. We don't need to change anything, really, to do that. If we just have that as what we want to do, and I'm all about the experience. I'd like to do it myself, but just one. We don't have to. I think that we would be skirting the duties of the superintendent, the duties and responsibilities of the superintendent. We would be skirting if we start to do that. So I want the experience too, but I only need it once. I don't need to do it for everybody. It's one time, let me sit in the back, see what it's all about. Thank you, goodbye. I don't need to do it again. Maybe my next 4 years term, I'll need a reminder, but that's it. So with that, any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll have an individual vote. Start with, wait, do we have this motion straight?
I think so. I left it at administrators, I left it on a non-voting roll, and
Okay, non-voting roll, back row.
Non-mandatory.
non-mandatory. Non-mandatory.
Back row, and it's administrators only. We got all that in, but you need another page?
I wanted to
Okay.
just make it a policy that we would work on, but, you know, we fine-tuned
Right,
it a little bit.
right, because it's not the policy we have now, so we would be changing the policy. So you can still amend your motion if you'd like to say that each school committee member gets to sit in on one interview team during the course of their tenure here on the school committee, or you can keep it like it is. It is like it is.
It is like it is.
You want a second?
I do second.
Motion and a second, discussion on assuming it's done, and I would like individual yay or nay. Joshua,
Yay.
Dottie,
Nay.
Sylvia,
Nay.
Mark, nay. Mike,
Yes.
yay. Alex,
Nay.
nay. Donnison,
Yes.
yes.
No pass.
No pass. I think that's Spanish for did not pass.
So I was trying to say.
Okay, moving right along. Thank you for your
So-
time with us, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to see all of you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ben. So no.
No, we're going back to the original policy, I'm assuming. That was.
Which does not preclude us from doing it.
It does preclude us from doing it. We are not mentioned in the policy at all for any reason,
But we've been doing it, so we've been,
but we don't know when that changed, why it changed, who decided they wanted to do it, but that's irrelevant. We have a new superintendent, not new.
so now we can't, now we're not,
I'm just confused, just for my own clarification. So we just voted, or some of us voted.
That's done, so this is gonna be a new discussion. That vote is done.
That's
We're
over.
not going back there. So unless you wanna, somebody wants to put on an agenda for the next meeting, we are done with that.
Okay.
could she make a new motion?
No, I just want to ask a question.
Okay,
So some of us just voted against that, but I was under the impression that even if I didn't approve, or if I didn't say yay to that motion, we would still be able to sit in one interview.
yeah, I think that would be reasonable.
But would we need a policy for that?
I don't think we need a policy for that. I
Okay.
think that can be a yeoman's decision, and
Okay,
I think we could,
but we'll still keep the current policy
we'll
that
st-
we
would
have,
still keep the
but
current
it's
policy.
personal preference.
Correct, that's,
Okay.
Then I'll make the motion.
that's an understanding, yes.
To
Okay.
accept policy P5221, policy procedures and guidelines to recruit, support, and retain highly efficient, effective staff.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none.
Oh, so, so the new policy.
I thought I was gonna do that real quick.
Well, you
Go ahead.
tried. The new policy, is this, and again, I'm sort of giving this a perusing, this is a prohibitive document as
This is
far
not
as
a
this?
new, this is not a new policy.
This is our
Nothing new
policy.
about this?
No.
So,
This is our policy. Always has been.
because the issue, I guess, for me, is having not gotten the okay to try and work on a policy based on what Ben had told us that we probably should do if we want to sit in. My concern now is that we are going back to a haphazard approach of not, maybe going to sit in or not sit in, which
Um,
sort of differs from what I think he advised
This
us.
superintendent and this chairman will allow each member to sit in on one search screening team, interview team, one time, that's just for the experience, so that you know what it's like. They're all the same, they're all done the same way. So each committee member can do one. And that's it, for your term. Second term, you can do it again, one time.
So it's just Sylvia and Donnison. Everybody else has served on a screening team, right?
Right.
So it'll be Sylvia first and Donnison second on a rotating list to get the first, you'll get the first call, Sylvia, for the
Do you
administrative.
have anybody else to interview? Probably not, right?
I will amend my motion and suspend it with reading.
Who seconded that? Did anyone second that?
Yes,
Alex did.
Alex.
Thank you.
So I have motion second. I think we're through discussion. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a
Ben.
good
Good
night,
night, Ben.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Summer.
See you later.
I think we're through discussion. Discussion?
Discussion, yeah. I don't see how that policy allows us to sit on that team. I don't see how our current policy would allow you or the superintendent to allow us to sit on that team. We wouldn't be able to if we keep this policy as it currently exists, as the way I read it.
Okay,
The
so,
thing is, beyond the policy, if you don't mind, beyond the policy, we have been doing it.
Yeah, but
So
we've been,
we just want to allow the other two school committee members to,
then we should make a policy stating that we're going to allow a member to do that. So
reasonable.
we're doing it very haphazardly, and again, as Mr. Pilata stated, we don't know who's gonna be in Mr. Pilata's seat in a year from now.
No, we know who's gonna be there for 3
Well,
years.
for a year. So, you know, I mean,
why don't I
that
amend my motion?
may not be haphazardly
Alright.
at that point.
So,
So at this point, I'd have to reject what we currently have.
okay,
Why don't I amend my
Go ahead.
motion to allow Mrs. St. Pierre and Mr. Allen to sit in on a session, an interview committee or a screening session.
so, if you don't mind, prior to doing that, I think we need to amend the policy to read that each school committee member can sit in at one meeting during the course of their 4-year term. So what Josh was saying is that
I
we
would-
really need that to be in this policy for it to
Agree with that, yeah.
be other than just he said, she said. We really need to
But you
state
you
that.
amend the policy, and then what you're doing is you're allowing for all school committee members to then sit in,
One time.
In 4 years, in their 4-year term, they can sit in on one meeting. And that's on a rotating
Well,
list.
those of us who already did.
You approved this policy 4 or 5 years ago.
yes.
The practice of a school committee person sitting on or observing probably precedes that. So there's nothing in any policy or any protocol that even allowed that to happen initially. I would not recommend that you go and touch this policy. This policy was modeled against the RIDE policy when Commissioner Gist came on to hire highly qualified people. So this is pretty consistent policy across the state. I think all you need to do as a committee is just to allow the two people who didn't sit on the committee to experience that, because that's the way it initially got started. Whatever the makeup of the committee was, there probably was a discussion just to have somebody observe, but there was no policy relegated to that. 5 years ago, we put this into place so that we had something that was consistent. The hiring was kind of splattered all over the place, and who was on different committees to hire individuals. So this policy gave us something that was systemic across part-time people, non-certified people, to certified people, to administrators. And I think, and I could be wrong, but I think the committee prior to that just discussed that, you know, hey, why don't we just have somebody sit in and observe? And it just happened. And then what evolved from that was some people voted, some people evaluated, some people didn't evaluate, some people said something, some people didn't say something. So we were trying to now make that piece of it consistent. So I think the policy's good that you voted on and approved. It's pretty consistent across the state. I just think what you need to do as a committee is just approve to have the two people who haven't observed to sit on the screening team. And then once you do that, as the chairman said, you pretty much completed the process.
So
Without making it complicated.
So
that was Dot's motion.
just
So
to
I second
amend
that
it
motion.
for Mrs. St. Pierre and Mr. Allen to,
One, if I could just say one quick question, or was that me? Somebody's touching the mic. So this policy's already in effect now, so there's
It's
no,
in effect for 5 years.
there's no need to vote on it, because it's in place, right? So,
Only if you want to amend it. I mean, if somebody wants to make a recommendation to amend it, you can certainly do that.
as presented.
and,
That's how I just.
so we already have, so there's no new ground that we're covering here if we say yes or no to it either way, because it's in place. So,
Just to accept it as it was presented.
I have a motion and a second to accept
As presented.
policy 5221 as presented. Motion and second. Further discussion?
And I made the amendment to allow Mrs. St. Pierre and Mr. Allen to attend.
Can we do that verbally? Yeah. Just verbally without.
I'd like to break
changing
those two up. I'd like to break that up. Have one motion for and another motion to allow Sylvia and, because I like to say no on one and yes on the other.
Alex, you seconded it, so you would agree to having her amend her motion to be only the policy and not two new people?
Can,
I was under the impression that I seconded the motion to keep the current policy, but to allow Mrs. St. Pierre, Mr. Allen, the opportunity to go sit in one interview.
Okay, and you don't want to amend your motion that you made?
Just,
You don't, there's two separate issues. You don't have to do anything with the policy. You already voted on that in 2010.
all right, then I will rescind my motion.
Motion rescinded.
Now you can go to the,
And I make the
Sylvia and
motion to
Donna.
allow Mrs. St. Pierre and Mr. Allen to
I would
attend
second that motion.
one session.
Good, motion and a second. Further discussion? Donnison?
Well, I have a little bit, I almost want to vote against that, only because it should just be established protocol, going back to your one meeting per term, because now it shouldn't be just Sylvia and
That
Donna
should,
for
that
now.
should be something
They've
that
already been served.
should be presented
Oh,
to
no,
the.
I know, but then we have an election and there's new board members, and they should have that same, so it shouldn't be a motion for two people. I think in general, it should just be a motion that we
Alright.
set a policy that we allow one, I mean, that's my, because I'm almost apt to vote against it for the,
by the protocol, and a school committee person gets to observe one
But
interview
we don't
process.
don't have to make that decision today. The next committee
No, we'll
after
come back to you
November
with
can
something.
decide with that, yeah.
Well, I'll come back to you with something.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
Okay,
That's,
That's perfect.
that makes
Perfect.
more sense.
All right, so,
this is our longest discussion, I think. Longer than
all in
usual.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none.
Aye.
Oh, Sylvia Post?
Sylvia opposed, all right. Moving right along.
It's longer than the videotaping one.
We still have any tape left, Justin? Item 10, Superintendent's Report, URI CVS Project, Dr.
This project was forwarded to us from URI and in collaboration with CVS. As you well know, over the years, Burrillville has been identified as having a substance abuse problem with the student population. We've talked about this at our Burrillville Community Task Force at several meetings. It's been on our agenda almost every meeting. It is a problem in the town. When this project came to us, they identified Burrillville through the studies that have been done that Burrillville does have an issue with substance abuse. So I did not want to go ahead and approve this process because of the last conversation that you had with the last survey group that came in. We did not go anywhere with that. That's still on hold. But this process may involve a survey, and I know your concerns regarding that. So I think initially, what I want to do is have Mr. Alba just give us a brief summary of the project, and next month, I'm going to have somebody from the project come and speak to you directly so you can ask them questions. So I want to make sure that you're completely comfortable with this, for or against this project. So Dr. Alba is just going to be initial provider of information with a short summary. Thank you.
A couple of weeks ago, Karen Barboza from URI College of Pharmacy came to Dr. Whaley and I and presented a proposal for the CVS One Choice Changes Everything project. The school was identified because Burrillville, out of the state, was ranked 4th in the number of students who had said that they would participate in non-medical use of opioids. So when a survey was given nationally, over the course of a lifetime, 7% of students had said they had used opioids. In Rhode Island, 11% had said so, and in Burrillville, 17% had said so. So we ranked 4th highest in the state. So our high school, along with 7 other high schools, were identified for this project where CVS, in conjunction with URI, had established a curriculum that would be presented to students. And what they wanted to do was to do a survey before the curriculum was presented to just generally see their knowledge about opioids and their tendency towards using and abusing them, then give the curriculum, and then afterwards give another survey, and then kind of look at the differences to see if the curriculum was effective at preventing those type of choices. So this is basically the second phase in this project, is to give a general overview.
Any questions for Dr. Alba?
One question. It says in this packet that we received that teachers and staff would receive professional development for this. And it says that it would be done in late August, early September, and it's primarily done for the first 2 days of professional development of the school year, so before the kids get here. Is that true?
Yes,
Okay.
if they decided to go forward with this, the next phase would be to give an overview to the faculty as to what the curriculum would entail. And then if it were to go forward from there, there would be a back-to-school letter that would be distributed to parents and to the community stating what the survey would entail, what the curriculum would entail, and the target population would be the incoming 9th grade students.
Anyone else? Mr. Eller?
I tend to agree that this is really important, and I think this is something I would support. I'm always concerned a little bit about data and anonymity and things of that nature, and I did review that other survey, and I had concerns about it. Is the survey something that can be reviewed as well by members of the committee, just to get an idea of where, you know, the questions go and what types of things would be asked of the students? I mean, I'm, in a general sense, very supportive of this idea because there is a big problem, and we need to address it, and maybe this is one way to do it. But I guess to abbreviate my
I can
question.
have Dr. Alba contact the coordinator to see if we can get a copy of that and get it to you so you can preview it before they come and speak to you.
Sure, I appreciate that, thank you.
Good, Dave?
Thanks.
So is the professional development starting this month?
It would be during the staff development meeting that would happen before school started.
Part of the staff development meeting?
The first 2 days.
Yeah, so we wouldn't have the questionnaire prior.
Okay, I think I'm okay with that, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there wouldn't be anything that would go out to students at that time. It would just be a general overview of the program to staff at that point.
Okay, good. Does anyone else have any questions? Dr. Alba? Hearing none, we don't need a motion on that. Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Allen.
Next item, administrators' reports. We'll see them next month with reports. Excuse me. October. Reports of school committee subcommittees. Hearing none. Correspondence, communications. We have one open letter to the school committee from Chairman Mark Broussard. Entertain a motion to receive and file. There's no
So
question.
moved?
Second?
Second?
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, one communication.
I received a communication from the commissioner. He's interested in visiting Burrillville sometime in January, I believe January 11th, from 10:15 to 12:15, and January 19th from 12 to 2. I will try to set that up. He usually likes to meet with parents and teachers. if you want to be part of that, just give us a call and, we'll notify you. But obviously, he's coming either in the morning or the early afternoon. He has been visiting the districts while he's been here, so those are the dates he's given us. So if you're interested in being part of that, just please give Ann a call, and we'll set that up to make sure we notify you.
Could I just ask that, Ann, you put that in our packet the week before? That will give us all a reminder to remind you,
Sure.
to remind us.
Yep.
Any other communications, correspondence? Next item, new business. Approve 16-17 final budget. Does anyone have any
To approve
questions?
as presented.
Second?
Motion and a second to approve as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approve. That's for both of them, that's for the, includes the rank?
Yep.
Includes the rank. Next item, approve bus routes.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion is second to approve as presented. Any discussion?
I assume the police department has reviewed all this, so I'm sure it's fine with them, so. Yes, I'm fine with it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approve homeschool applications.
Motion to approve as presented?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item, the Burrillville Police Department recognition, Alex Leclerc.
You guys see that? Don, so you can see that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Good evening. I'm going to try to get through this presentation without having a coughing attack. So fingers crossed. I am presenting an idea to the whole committee tonight. It's an appreciation breakfast. So the purpose of this appreciation breakfast would be to give thanks to the Burrillville Police Department. The Burrillville Police Department dedicates an enormous amount of time to the school department and ensuring that our faculty and our staff and students are always safe and protected throughout the school year and throughout the whole calendar year in general. The police department does school walkthroughs. We have our student resource officer, like you all know. He is a very powerful presence in the schools, in my opinion. When I'm in the schools and he's also in the school, I see him interacting with students during lunchtime, during passing time in the hallways, and students honestly all run up to him and just want to talk to him. They want 5 seconds of his time, and you can just really tell that he's a great mentor to these kids. Colonel Lynch and Dr. Pilata are in constant communication. They are part of our yearly school assessment program, and they are also members of our BPAC, the Burrillville Prevention Action Coalition, that meets once a month. Specific details. So pending the approval of the Burrillville School Committee, the breakfast would be held on Friday, August 19th at 9:30 in the Public Complex Community Room at the police station. Now, the reason that I already have picked out a pending date is because I thought it would be important to do this before the school year starts. If we were to do this, I would hope that we would invite school administration teams to be a part of it, and that would only be able to be done before school starts. And I believe August 19th, that's the week before. Short ceremony would be held at approximately 10 a.m., where a certificate would be given to the colonel, presented either by the chairman or Dr. Pilata or another committee member. And this certificate would again just express our appreciation to the whole department for all their hard work and dedication. And like I said, this event would be open to all police department staff as well as the school department administration teams. Funding. So this breakfast would be catered by Fireworks Catering. While I was putting this presentation together, I did extensive research about different restaurants and catering services locally and throughout the whole state that would be able to do this for us. Fireworks Catering was the most reasonable in terms of pricing and services. A specific menu item that I like was the weekend brunch breakfast. The cost per person was $10.50, and of course the price will go down the simpler the buffet. This buffet incorporates both cold and hot foods, which I think would be nice because it's a little bit more fancy and stuff. The approximate number of guests would be 40 to 50, meaning the cost would be between $415 and $525 plus a standard delivery cost. I have reached out to the colonel just to see if he was interested at all before bringing this to you, and he did show some interest. So, I mean, if we did do this, I have a good feeling there would be great attendance. My suggestion is that we put $650 towards this event altogether, $525 being for food, $75 for a delivery fee. Fireworks Catering would deliver all of the food and would help set up. So that would be that fee. And then the miscellaneous line item would be $50, which would be for plates and napkins and cutlery and all that stuff. This was just an invite that I quickly drafted that if the committee approves this idea tonight, I would send this out either later on tonight or tomorrow morning to, again, the colonel, his staff, and all of the Burrillville School Department admin teams. Again, why? The Burrillville Police Department has a wonderful partnership with the school department. The department always goes above and beyond, and in my opinion, we are very blessed to have this wonderful partnership, and I think we should just show some appreciation for all the hard work and dedication that they put in to ensuring that everyone is safe. Especially with everything that's going on in the world, I think that this is a perfect time to do this. And that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions?
Good presentation, Alex, thank you. Very deserving, that's for sure. I think the police department goes far beyond their call of duty to communicate with us. Certainly the walkthroughs that they have, the colonel has just done great things for the school, and before we even asked him to, we reinstituted the officer in the schools, resource officer. He also said his patrolmen that are out, if you're just out, there's not a lot going on, go through the schools, whatever district you're in, stop in that school, have a walkthrough, meet the kids love it. It's just something that no other district does, and really it came from the colonel. Dr. Pilata works very closely with him. Obviously, wouldn't want to take the credit away from Dr. Pilata, but especially in this day and age, the kids need to see this, and it helps our district tremendously. So I think you did a great job. I think it's a worthwhile cause myself.
Yeah, I would also add to that, I think the little things that they do that you probably don't know about, that when we do a walkthrough and we get some extra money to buy some extra cameras for the schools, I I call up the colonel, he sends somebody over, right, he'll send the major over, and they'll do a walkthrough with us through the building, and the colonel will come himself sometimes and tell us from their perspective, from the law perspective, where those cameras should be placed in the schools. You know, you don't get that kind of service in a lot of places. And when we do the school assessments, the colonel comes, the major comes, the sergeant comes, and they have great ideas in terms of how to make the schools a lot safer, things that you and I would even never think about. They always think about it from the perspective of basically an active shooter and how to address that. So, and the other thing that really helped us to get the $300,000 grant was their participation on the substance abuse community task force that we have. He has himself on that. We co-chair that with 3 or 4 other officers, and that was a big role that the police department played in getting us that grant, and hopefully getting additional monies moving forward and getting an additional grant. So he's really connected with the school department. I can't say enough about the police department and what they've done. I've served in a couple of communities and never got that kind of service that the Burrillville Police Department provides to us.
Any other comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll entertain a motion that we provide $650 towards the buffet and the buffet breakfast to honor the police department, the Burrillville Police Department.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Sounds good, looking forward to it. Get my appetite ready.
You'll all be receiving an invitation later on tonight, so watch your inbox.
Thank you. Next item, Superintendent Contract.
I should have kept quiet.
Yeah. Does anybody want to rethink that? No. Dottie, would you like to make a motion?
Sure. You might not like my motion. I'll make a motion that we accept the superintendent's contract as he presented it, and hope that in January, we will discuss the contract again.
That part of the motion?
Yes, it is.
I'll second that.
Hey, it's part of the motion, I can't change that. We have a motion and a second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Dr. Flora.
Appreciate your cooperation working with
you,
you the
Frank.
last 6 years. Thank you very much.
Very good.
Thank you for bringing us to where we are today. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Committee on agenda items? Anyone?
I just have something, I don't know if it's an agenda item. I think the next time we meet, that schools will be in session already, so I guess what I'd like to do is welcome back all the administration, teachers, bus drivers, monitors, cafeteria workers, and volunteers, and most importantly, that the reason we are here, are the Burrillville students. Have a happy, successful, and safe school year.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
Here it comes.
Yeah, there it is, already.
Anyone else? Pending issues. 5-year facilities assessment, building committee, no report. Football,
You'll get a PowerPoint next month, Dave, on that.
look forward to that. Of what Dr. Blas stated was for those of us that could not do the walk around with the facilities director to show us all the improvements that has been done. He's doing a PowerPoint presentation. He's going around, he's taking photos, videos, and audio, and he's gonna come and have that for us next month. That's gonna be, look forward to that. Football field lighting?
I have nothing. I propose that we remove this from pending issues until something comes up at this point. There's
Do we need a motion
no
to
action
remove
being
it?
taken at this time.
I'll second
A
that.
motion to remove
Motion to remove.
pending issues. I have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 17.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Yay.